Hey, it's Kley. Welcome to another video. In about a month, I've got a pretty big gig coming up. Pretty excited about it, but I'm not ready. One of the things I got to do to get ready is to put my pedal board together. I'm going to walk through my pedal choices. We're going to build the board, and we're going to see how it sounds and see if this is going to work for me and for my gig. If you're interested in checking that out, why don't you stick around? Let's dive in. Alright, as we get started, I want to talk about this gig. It's a Kley Jong band gig, which means it's kind of a blues, I was going to say a blues trio, but actually I think we got 4 guys this time. But it's a lot of blues, classic rock songs, and a lot of lead guitar that I'm going to be playing. And so my pedal board, it's kind of always in rotation, and for the last several months I really haven't been playing this kind of music. Been exploring some other creative options, and so need to kind of refocus and get this thing put back together. So a couple of things that I really want. First of all, I need definitely different layers of gain, distortion, overdrive. So, probably a low gain kind of foundational piece that I can work off of. I want to be able to boost it both in front of it for more gain and after it for more level. And also I need to have different levels of saturation, all the way from clean to a medium, maybe a bluesy type tone, to a pretty screaming lead, and even I really also like to have some kind of fuzz textures as well. We're going to incorporate some of that in this as well. I need a little bit of delay, a little bit of reverb, but not a ton. I need a tuner. I need this thing to be rock solid, reliable. I also need it to be moderately portable. I can't be packing something that's really, really huge that's going to take me half an hour to load in and set up. I need to be able to carry this in one hand and an amp in another and a guitar over my shoulder and make one trip from my car to the stage. So with those considerations in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at what we're working with. Okay, so these are the 2 boards that I've got. This one here on the left, I mostly keep this one here and want to have a pedal board that is pretty much set up and ready to go for more of practicing. This is not intended to be one that's taken on the road, and the primary reason really, I need the looper. I like having a multi-effects pedal, so it's got a lot of what I'm looking for, but I also have this one here on the right, and both of these are ones that I made myself. They both have power supply. This one's got the Voodoo Labs, this one's got a True Tone. And so I think I'm going to use this pedal board and modify it to my needs. So let's go take a closer look at that guy. Okay, let's start at the beginning. My first pedal is very likely going to be some kind of fuzz, and it's going to be up here. Now this is a MOSFET fuzz from DBE. My friend Eric, designed by Eric, actually made that pedal. It's a really, really nice silicon fuzz face. I also have this, which is my own custom germanium fuzz face that I built. I'm going to probably go with the silicone because this gig is going to be outdoors. Now this one does have a bias control here, but I just don't want to mess with germanium at this gig. I want something that I can kick on and crank the fuzz knob and give me that really saturated, singing, heavy sustain type of a lead sound. So we're going to go with that. Second, I'm also going to include an octave pedal. This is my Tycho Brahe Octavia. It can do a fuzz. It's got a fuzz control, but I really like it for the octave. I pretty much always leave the octave on. And so I think between those two, that's going to give me some really interesting lead textures. Now, some other things I was thinking about, I do have a big muff here, but because this is more of a blues gig and the fuzz is going to be more of a soloing type fuzz as opposed to maybe like a stoner rock type thing, I'm going to go with the fuzz face. So we're not going to do the big muff. Now, let's talk a little bit about, I do have this pedal, which is a volume and also a wah. This is a Hotone wow press, and I actually really quite love this pedal. Having the ability to do a wah could be pretty cool, and maybe also even to do kind of like the faux volume swell type thing. So we're going to see. This one may get trimmed away, but I do kind of like to have it. So next, I've got to do like some overdrives. I've got these two. This is a Zen Drive by Hermida, And this is the Noble's ODR Mini. Those are probably my two favorites right now for this kind of low to medium gain overdrive setting. So regarding my overdrives, I've got these 5 here, and these are kind of maybe the best contenders I've got for more of the low gain overdrive. I've got the Nobles, I've got a Blues Breaker clone that I built. This is a Mo-Sky Silver Horsey, which is kind of like a Klon. I've got this K-Line Pure Sky, which is like a Timmy. And then this Sweet Baby overdrive. I'm going to take the Joyo out. I like the K-Line because it's got the treble and the bass controls, but I also kind of like the Blues Breaker. I think I'm going to go with the Blues Breaker for this. If it's a blues gig, I just think that's hard to beat, just as a really good solid low gain overdrive. Then second, I've got more of a higher gain distortion. I'm probably, the DoD is an interesting pedal, but I don't know if I've always really gotten along with it, so I'm going to go with the Zen Drive, just to give me a little bit more of that vocal mid-range. Now a little comment here about order. I think the way that I would probably envision this is that the Blues Breaker would be a little bit more of like the always-on low gain, and then I would hit the Zen Drive to beef it up a little bit. So I'm probably going to put the Zen Drive first to be boosting the level and the gain into the Blues Breaker. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it. Then the last thing I'm also thinking about is whether or not I want to put something at the end. For example, I've got this K-Line 10-band EQ, and this might be kind of a nice level boost to put at the very end of the signal chain. So, you know, but at some point you're kind of having too many pedals, but between these 4, that's how I'm going to layer my distortion and my level. I'm going to put this one up here just because I am curious to have an EQ. I've got a couple options with this. First of all, I could leave it always on just to help me shape my tone going into the amp. Or I could use it to bust up the gain and maybe boost a little more of the mid-range to give me more of a solo boost. So I do like some of the versatility that that K-Line would present me. Okay, next I want to talk about this section of the board. I usually always have one kind of multi-effects to cover the miscellaneous things. This usually ends up being things like modulation, auto-wah, things like that. I do have this JHS harmonic tremolo, which I really, really like. But I think with this type of gig, one of these two would work really well. Now the benefit of the G3N is that you could obviously have 3 pedals on or off, but the M5 is a little simpler to use. Like the tap and the tuner is a little bit better, whereas with the Joyo you gotta hold it and then it's a second button, which I don't always love. But I think I'm gonna go with the Zoom, just because it's gonna give me a little bit more flexibility to give me a little bit more options to play with. Now I do have the DoD Rubberneck on here. This is an analog delay. I really, really love this pedal. I'm probably going to keep it on just because I love it so much, but I could just as well cover the delay needs from the Zoom. But I really do love the sound of the DoD. And then last, I want a reverb pedal. These are kind of the 3 that I've got on hand. The New Neighbor is a really nice set and forget. The Fathom here is also pretty nice, and then the TC Hall of Fame Mini is pretty cool too. I think between these 3 I'm going to go with the Fathom, just because I think it gives me a little bit more flexibility with more tone controls on the top, and it's also got the sustain switch. Now the one downside of that though, and the reason why I maybe would go with the Wet, is just because having 2 foot pedals like this, 2 foot switches close together, there's like a chance that I could accidentally bump one, and being on the second riser, so there is definitely an argument to be had to use the Hoff or the Wet for just the ease of use, but I'm going to try this one and see how I like it. Okay, so now I've kind of picked from the pedals, and just thinking a little bit about the music I'm going to play, I'm pretty confident that this board would cover all that really well. I'm definitely heavy on the gain staging side and a little bit lighter on the delay and modulation, but because it's more of a blues rock gig, that's where I need most of my shaping to occur. I'm not going to be layering a whole bunch of this stuff, and so this is more light use, so I'm pretty comfortable with that. However, one thing we need to talk about is powering this guy. Okay, let's talk about power. Here on the bottom, I've got a True Tone CS7. I really like this power supply because it's very quiet. It's got some pretty high current outputs, including like a 500 volt, so it can power the Joyo just fine on its own. And overall, I really like it for its dependability. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the name, obviously, outputs. And one of them is an 18 volt, so I can use that on one of my overdrive pedals. But the rest are 9 volters, including this one, which has to go to power the Zoom. So one trick that I am going to use, though, is because if I've got 7 powers supply cables, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pedals. So that creates a little bit of a problem. But what I can do, I have this cable here, which I made. This is a 1 to 3 splitter. So it starts with one input. So it's going into a 9 volt, 200 milliamp current, and it splits into 3. So I really have 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9. So I think that should cover all of my power needs. This is probably not, obviously these are not isolated. These are all going to be daisy chained together. But I found if I put them on my like fuzz or lower gain, like my overdrive pedals, that's not a big problem. Whereas I wouldn't want to use that to power like the delays and the reverbs. So let's go ahead and run these cables and get this thing wired up. Okay, I've got all my power cords plugged in. Now I'm going to focus on tidying this up a little bit. Now, one thing that I tend to do when I'm building these is I don't actually want this to be permanent. Just because the nature of my personality, I am always continuously making changes and modifications and updates and tweaks to my board. And so I almost never have kind of a permanent solution. So what I'm going to do is this is just a twist tie, and I'm going to try to bunch and collect a lot of these wires together into a reasonable clump, and then use the zip tie actually to be responsible for grouping them all together in a nice tidy fashion so that they're not completely floating all over the place or getting into the way or making any problems. But it's also like this is something that could definitely, the advantage of the twist tie method here is that you can absolutely open this thing up in a month. If I decide to make some changes or if I change the layout, it's really not that hard. So you can see, while none of this is held down very strictly and permanently, it still provides a pretty good experience in terms of ease of adjustment, while also balancing that with certainty and being held fixed tight down. Okay, next let's talk a little bit about signal flow. Pretty simply, the guitar is going to come into the fuzz face and then the octave. We're going to go from there into the volume. I want these two to be in front just because of the nature of these fuzzes and their impedance, the way they handle impedance. I want them to be able to be really close to the guitar pickup. It also gives me the ability to have my volume pedal both before or after gain and also before gain. So if I put the fuzz on and use the volume pedal, when I swell in, when I'm at like 25% volume, the volume is going to be really low but very saturated. Whereas if I have these off and one of these on, when I have the volume at 25%, it's going to clean up the distortion, but it's still going to be at a higher volume. So it gives me the flexibility to do both those things depending how I would want to do it, which could potentially be a cool effect. So next let's talk a little bit about patch cables. I've got a whole bunch of these Rockstock cables, and Rockstock is one of my favorite patch cable companies. I recommend these a lot. They are a friend of mine, and they've actually sent these out for me to check out years ago, and I really have enjoyed them. I'll include a link down in the description below if you want to check them out, but I've used these patch cables for a long time. I found them to be very reliable. They also look good, and what I really love the most about these is they've got this really slim pancake end, and it just makes it really easy if your pedal board gets really crowded, if you've got pedals that are squeezed together really close. The nature of these are really easy to work with. So I love these patch cables. We're going to use these to wire this thing up. Okay, so now I've got everything wired up. I've got a nice signal flow, fuzz, volume, drive, zoom, the EQ, the rubberneck, and the Fathom reverb. I got a little bit of everything. Very easy. Gonna plug an IEC power cable in here, and let's plug this thing into a clean amp and see how it sounds. All right, this is a setup that might very well be exactly what I would use on my gig. I've got my favorite Stratocaster into the new pedal board. I'm running out of the pedal board into the front of a Marshall Plexi that is set very, very clean and neutral. Like the channels are jumpered internally. The normal channel's at like 3, bright channel's off, master's cranked, the EQ is all at noon. Into a 2 notes torpedo captor running a speaker impulse response. So first thing, I'm out of tune. So can I easily tune on this thing? Well, the zoom provides that. I do have to press and hold to get into either this tap or tuner mode, which I don't always love, but it does have a tuner here. Alright, I've just spent a little bit of time playing through the board, kind of acclimating myself, getting a feel for it, and I'm at a place where I'm actually really pretty happy with this thing. Let's show off a little bit of these tones. Okay, let's start with just the basic clean tone. A little bit of reverb. The blues breaker. I really like the blues breaker and a little bit of reverb just as a very basic, general, all-around tone. I can play some leads, I can clean it up, play some rhythm. This is a really nice bass line setup. Let's test all the different drive options. So starting with the blues breaker. hope you guys enjoyed that little bit of a look into creating a pedal board for a specific purpose, for a specific gig. The thought selection that goes into picking the pedals, the order and orientation of the pedals, how we power it, and really even how the tones all come together to produce something that I think is going to really inspire me for this gig. I'm really excited to try this thing out. I think that's a huge piece of it. Like, do I look forward to it? Am I thrilled and excited by the tones that I'm going to be getting out of this board? I just think, you know, you want to be creative. You want to be at a place where when you're playing this kind of a gig where you feel like you can just explore whatever your heart's desire is. And I think this pedal helps me get to that point. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down section below. We'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.